Welcome to another BCS podcast. Today, our very special guest is Mr. Mel Witcher. Hi, Mel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming by today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
You're a busy man. You've been here. I'll let you speak to that in a moment, but you're currently teaching. You're the head of the Bible. You're the chair of the Bible.
Yes.
And right. You teach American government.
AP government.
AP government.
Yeah. This is my third year, so that's my newbie, my added on. So
nice. So you're busy just even with that.
Yes.
And what grades do you teach for the Bible?
For Bible, I teach freshmen and all incoming high school students. So it's primarily freshmen, but also I have two seniors and 3 or 4 juniors and some sophomores. So it's a mixed bag.
So you get the whole gamut.
I do. I get to. In fact, I've told Carol I love having my 9th graders. I get to introduce them to high school life, to exemption program, to how things work with so much more freedom. And then I get to see them again as seniors to give them a heads up on what college will be like and some of the responsibilities there and some of the freedoms and how to handle that. So I get to handle both ends of the high school spectrum.
That's awesome. I mean, and it's great to have them circle back. Because
it really is. They are so much different, so much more mature when I have them as seniors. It's a blessing to me.
And anything that you didn't get to catch at the beginning of their experience, you get to give them those last words before they move on and transition out of high school.
That's always my plan. In fact, I always tell them, I'd love to have you come back, but I'm going to ask you 2 questions when you come back, so be ready for them. Number 1, how are we doing academically? How did we prepare you for college? Is there something that we did well, something we need to do better? Number 2, who is your faith community? Who are you going to hold you responsible? And I'm trying to be very faithful about asking that. I've gotten some good answers. I've also gotten some that I've said, well, you know what I think about, my opinion on that. Tell me about school, and we'll go on. So.
Okay, awesome. And those are fair questions to ask because we do want to prepare them both academically, but more importantly, spiritually.
Absolutely.
And so when kids usually transition out of high school and they get their independence away from the home, away from the K through 12 experience that they had. Now the test really comes in. Do they walk away from it? Do they embrace it? What are they doing? And so for them to come back and even have those conversations is a great opportunity to see how the seed has developed and if they're bearing any fruit. But before we get into that, everybody has a story. So we love the Testimony Tuesdays because I know people have been tuning in and they've been fascinated to hear some of our faculty, staff. We're going to have parents. We have some students that have shared their faith and to hear that journey and what led them to faith. So with you, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your background, how you came to Brentwood, and how you became a Christian.
All right. I will try to summarize it quickly. I was in church from the time I was born. My mother was a faithful believer. My grandparents were faithful believers. My grandfather was an elder in the church. And so I was always there, which probably made me push back a little bit against it when I was in middle school. I mean, I wasn't terribly rebellious, but I remember my grandfather talking with me and saying, why haven't you made the commitment yet? Why have you not been baptized? And I pushed back, and it's funny. I have kids who talk about, the joy of it. I read C.S. Lewis a while back, and he got my experience, I think, very well. He said, believers talk about the search for God. He said, for me, it was more like the mouse's search for the cat. God found me and said, make a decision, make a call. And I did, and it was marvelous. But again, I felt one way or the other. I must make a choice. Now, that's not where I ended up now, but I still had a lot more maturing to go. But I think it is in the Gospel of John. It starts by willing to do the will of the Father. That's John 7:17, I believe it is. The one who wills to do the will of the Father, then he will know. So you begin, for me, by saying, this is my commitment. I'm not sure where I'm going. And God has led me every way, every step of the way.
Awesome. So was there that aha moment, though? What age was that? And then you said, I'm a Christ follower.
Well, Well, again, I was baptized in like the 8th grade. I went through high school. I went to college. I met my wife again as a Christian, and I wasn't living in horrible, awful sin, but I wasn't terribly committed. We were married. She was a much more committed believer than I. And then I graduated. I went to graduate school in music education. And I think that's where all of a sudden I was faced with, wait, who are you? I remember the day when it really came to me. I'd finished a master's degree, had begun working on a doctorate. I was in a class on research in music education. Now, I had a professor who was an agnostic and pretty much ridiculed the Christian faith. And I had another believer in class with me, and we sort of made alliance, and we talked together about it, and it was good to be there. But I remember sitting in her office one day, and I was presenting my research on data on how to teach children rhythm and about a different proposal on how to do that. I know that seems so esoteric and strange, but as I was finishing up that presentation, she looked at me and said, "You're a Christian, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "You're so serious about it. You Christians are always so serious. Don't you know it really doesn't matter? Do your research, write your dissertation, and go on. It really doesn't change anything." And I said, "Ma'am, if I believed that, I wouldn't be here." And 6 months later, we moved out of Denton. I moved out to West Texas, where I could spend more time with my wife and my 2 little children. Looking back, it was the best decision I ever made, because at that point, I was really faced with that choice. Who are you? And I seriously read repeatedly through Ecclesiastes and the passage in chapter 3. There's nothing better for a man than to eat, drink, and enjoy his wife, for this is God's gift. And that was the word of God to me at that point. I've since moved far beyond that and realized that so much more is God's gift. But that was my dark night of the soul, I guess you could say. And from then on, it's been God opening doors that I never expected, in fact, in many ways. But my wife and I have gone through them and been blessed.
That's awesome. Similarly, I was in college, and I was working on my testimony because I had gotten straight away from my walk with the Lord, and God put my wife in my life. And it's like, here I had all this head knowledge from all the years growing up, and then of Scripture, and then my wife comes along, but she had the application part. And so God knows what we need, right? By putting a faithful woman in our lives to help remind us and to ground us that it's not about the head knowledge. It really is about living it out and really committing and serving the Lord. So kudos to you for that and for making the right choice. And so you've moved on. You mentioned music. I love to hear you sing. Now, I've always come from a church background where there was always, music in the background. And so when I came to Brentwood and hearing everybody singing a cappella, I was like blown away on just the harmony and just how beautifully it sounds. And you get up there and you lead on our chapels. And it's, I got to say, it's amazing to listen to you and how you lead.
Well, thank you. My mother had me, if you can believe it, standing up with a long line of little boys at age 4, waving our hands with the song leader up in front of the church and leading. And she took me to singing schools all around Central Texas when I was upper elementary, middle school. And today I'm teaching at a singing school in Abilene every summer. So again, it's a matter of passing on the joy, a joy that I didn't even realize how deep it was when I was a kid.
And it continues not just in that area, but you said your family has a history being in the church and being elders in the church, and now you're an elder here at the church.
Yes, that was one of the most surprising things. I think they came and asked me if I would consider that, and my thought was, I'm not old enough. I'm just barely holding it all together myself. But again, it's been a blessing. It's even within the eldership, you see God working with the various gifts within the body. I often feel like, wow, I'm not prepared for this task, and I'm not. I'm not. But it's what Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, not that I'm competent in myself, but God has given me competence through the Spirit. And I am able to do there some things with some elders who are far more talented in many of the things than I am, but I can add my voice, I guess you could say, to that.
Well, God uses us and the gifts that He's given us to bring glory to Himself and to serve others. And so I think you do a great job, to be honest, and you're a man of well-known reputation here at Brentwood, and people admire you and respect you. So I guess we respect our elders, as they say.
Thank you.
Now, transitioning now into the classroom, because you've been Teacher of the Year through NCSA, so you've got the accolades, you've got the respect and the experience for being able to be up in front of these students and to teach them the things that they need to know. But in seeing what you've seen over the years, now, first of all, please answer how long you've been teaching at Brentwood. And in that time, have you noticed any changes with our culture and how that's having an effect on our students that are graduating today versus 20 years ago?
Oh, heavens, yes. I was just counting up because I don't really even keep track of it. I believe this is my 36th year here. I started here in 1989.
I was just 4.
Yeah, thank you. That makes me feel...
I'm teasing.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, no, I've been here 36 years. We went from a school with very small classes, very informal in many ways. In fact, I remember kids making donut runs during the passing period and coming back. Would not be allowed. Don't try it, guys. No. Anyway, but there was a seriousness. A seriousness to faith, which I think we still have a core of students who have that seriousness of faith. They want to be God's person, and that has held it together. We've been small, and as we've grown, we brought in some searchers who want to know. Sometimes we brought in some folks who are here only for the high academic standards, and that's lovely. We want people who want to achieve, but I was actually principal here one year, and one of my questions when I brought in the parent after interviewing the student was, I want you to know our deepest desire is for your child to become a Christian, to become a follower of Christ. And if you can't support that or at least cooperate with that, then this is not the place for you. And I actually had a couple of parents who said, oh, no, I know you have to say that, but oh, you're allowed. I said, no, this is who we are. And some of the changes, I think we went through some tough times, some questioning, a lot during, I would say, the 1990s was a real period of questioning and pushing things. I think 9/11 changed hearts for a while. We began to realize what a precious gift life is. And we're now, I think, back into a more questioning stage. And don't hear me wrong, questioning is exactly what God wants us to do.
Definitely.
Within the realm of faith. I tell my kids, you can scream and cry at God and pound on His chest. That's what He wants you to do. Even if you're angry, He wants you to come to Him, because as long as you're coming to Him, you're within the realm of His grace. It's when you turn away, and that does not mean God gives up on you. But, well, we're filming this on Valentine's Day. Love is not coerced. It's freely given. God gives it as a free gift, but He also allows us the freedom to give it back. And I'm entering with these kids, I think, a time of asking some really tough questions about their identity, about morality, about truth. And again, it's I don't have all the answers in a nice little line here, a little epigram, but I do know who has the answers, and we can live with him and learn more and more how to live and how to see and how to understand each day. And that's what I call my kids to do. Just be present. Well, the theme verse, draw near to God, he will draw near to you. I actually tell my freshmen, draw near to God, he's actually already there.
No, that's a good point. And also based on love. And I think back, giving up that independence. God gives us independence. We're not robots. And he says, now I want you to give up your independence and be dependent upon me and trust that what I have for you is going to be far better than what the world wants. But we like to flirt with that independence until we get in trouble, right? And then we're crying out to the Lord. But in that process, that struggle, it's like I've mentioned before, that metamorphosis, it's coming through the cocoon, right? The caterpillar that becomes the butterfly. You have to struggle in that metamorphosis period of time and trying to figure it out and understanding, why God created me, why he put me on this earth. But love is so important because if I just told my wife that I love her because I have to, I love you, I mean, what good is that? But if my wife, knowing all my faults, all the warts, all the issues about me, and yet she still chooses to love me in spite of that. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. Well, that's how God is with us. Even with, no matter when we let him down, we don't live up to the expectations, he still loves us, and it's always there, and he's faithful with that. And he can call us back. He's working on our heart, but we have to make that choice and seek him.
And I tell my kids, it is a once for all choice, but it's also an every morning choice.
Definitely. Every
morning you recommit. Every morning, who gets this day? Every morning, who am I speaking for? Who am I playing for? And again, you mentioned something about reaching for independence. So the word, of course, for me is freedom. I want to be free. I want to be free. But again, for me, freedom only comes within the constraints, within the disciplines. Michael Jordan is absolutely free, or was, to do just about anything with a basketball.
Right.
But he did that because he had dribbled, he had shot, he had done right-hand layups, left-hand layups. He'd done it so many times. I'm a musician. I think about the marvelous improvisers who, given the chord structure and a little bit of interplay, we can create beautiful music. But the reason we can do that is because we have mastered the scales. We have rehearsed those so much that they're not just in our heads, they're in our hands, they're in our ears, and then as life comes at us, we can respond. To me, that's the Christian life. It's not a series of rules. The rules give us guidelines.
Exactly.
And then, though, the focus, the goal is to become like God. So again, if my goal in basketball is to get it in the basket, I need to know many different ways in which to do that. If my goal is to honor God, knowing who God is and who he's created me to be, then I need to be free to improvise within the guidelines. But that only happens because I've lived the disciplines. I have gone through the spiritual practices. I've trained myself to think like God, not completely, but to let his thoughts shape me.
Definitely. We're conforming to his image.
Yeah, very good, yes.
But even like in basketball, I mean, there are boundaries. You can't step out of bounds. He can do whatever he wants with the basketball, but he's confined within certain rules and limitations that he must operate in, but still master it within that confinement. I think of Christianity is really, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And so many people today, I think, are really missing that. And you think about if I spent an hour and a half with my wife on Sunday mornings and maybe an hour with her on Wednesday nights, and maybe I talked to her maybe a minute or two on Tuesdays, would you say I have a good relationship with my wife?
No,
of course not.
No.
So why would we think that if we attend church once a week and maybe go on a Wednesday night and maybe say a prayer before I eat on a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday morning, that somehow we have a relationship with the Lord? You have to invest time. You have to invest time in his word, with his people, with other Christians, so that they can pour into your life, bear one another's burdens, encourage each other in the faith, hold each other accountable. that's what really helps in that relationship to develop. And so I encourage anybody who is not doing those things to really examine themselves and say, look, I don't feel like I'm that close with the Lord. Well, why? Then he's right there, and he's waiting. He's wanting you to spend the time.
And again, I think it goes back and forth to the disciplines, the practices of having a regular time of Bible study, having a regular time of prayer. But it also comes in recognizing moment by moment, I am living in the presence of God. I remember, again, here's a personal story. Let the old man tell a story. When I was a band director out in West Texas, I got in the practice of every time the phone went off in our house, didn't have cells, the phone went off, I would say, Lord, set a seal upon my lips. Or, Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you. And so I'd just offer a quick prayer on the way to pick up the phone. I picked up the phone one time, and I had an angry parent who kept me on for over 30 minutes.
Uh-oh.
I was timing, and I kept thinking, Lord, I've prayed to you about this. And the funny thing is, at the very end, I said, well, ma'am, you and I are obviously not going to agree on this. Let's speak Monday morning with the principal. Let's bring him in. And she said, oh, he never listens to me anyway. And she hung up. And I thought, Lord, you enabled me to not say anything ugly or to break relationships here. And so I think that moment in that times of crisis, just before we act, before we speak, to just stop and take a breath and say, Lord, set yourself as a seal, not only on my lips, but on my heart.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely need to do that because who knows how the flesh is going to respond in many situations, and if we took the time.
And especially in a time on social media, which again, I'm not on social media, but it trains our heart to respond in anger by treating others as enemies rather than as discussion partners, as those with whom we disagree. And in fact, I have a statement up on my wall, up on the classroom wall that I point to all the time. A conversation, I'd say a discussion, even a disagreement, is not about you trying to prove your point, nor about me trying to prove my point, about both of us seeking to find something else. And that is the truth. And that is, again, every Bible class I teach, every conversation I have, I want both to be ready to speak openly of what God has done and what God is doing, but also be ready to listen to others' understanding, even misunderstandings, and sometimes allow myself to be corrected in my misunderstandings. And that's why God places us in community, in relationships with each other, to foster that ultimate relationship with Him.
You're so right, especially with our culture where we're at today. And like you said, they're back to the asking the questions, how things have changed, where we went full circle back to like where we were in the 90s, questioning everything, which can be good. But as long as we're not just trying to seek answers that to support what we want to believe, what we should want to believe is the truth. And if everybody's, like you said, from different perspectives, we're all coming together. But if we're looking for truth, I think we'll be more tolerant of listening to one another. And really, because that's what we want. We want the truth. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my position is not so clear as I thought it was. But if we're only looking for answers that are going to support what I want to believe, that's where you see the fighting back and forth. Because it doesn't matter what, I'm only thinking about what I want to say next, even when you're talking, instead of really appreciating, okay, this is what you're saying. Tell me more about that. And so we got to get back to that somehow. And I think like as we wrap this up right now in the classroom and dealing with the seniors, I'm sure you get a lot of opportunities to have those kind of discussions.
Yes. And one of the things I try to point out, and I've said it I think a couple of times this year already, that toleration is actually a Christian virtue. But toleration in our culture is often understood as, well, you can believe what you want, I'll believe what I want, we just tolerate each other. No. Tolerance is that idea. It actually comes from construction, right? That we build something here and it needs to be 3.5 inches long. Well, I can tolerate 3 3/8, or maybe I can tolerate 3 5/8. So again, that toleration it assumes a standard.
Exactly.
It assumes the one that we're both looking for. If toleration simply means, oh, whatever, that's chaos. That's anarchy. And the society can't function like that. The church will not function. God will not allow it to. And even our society can't. Again, quote I just read a while back, G.K. Chesterton. He said, when we disrespect, when we cannot follow the big laws, what we don't get is anarchy. What we get is a whole series of small laws, teeny tiny rules. And so, again, I want to help my kids search for the freedom that comes from knowing God and knowing the goal and knowing the model and the rules which lead to Him, which we stay in the boundaries, but within the boundaries to learn to live that life of freedom, that life of using my gifts, my talents to His glory and to the blessing of others.
Awesome. Well, I couldn't have said it any better. Mel, I appreciate you taking time to stop by today. I would like to have you back some other time where we could talk about American government, especially AP American government, and knowing that what a hot topic is politics right now is just like causing division. It's on fire. Everybody's all over the place. So I really want to explore, because I taught U.S. history, and so it's I know what that environment can be like, so we'll have to bring you back and we'll have to talk about that a little more in depth.
Oh, boy. I'll look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time. And it's like we always like to end our show. It's always a great day
to be a Brentwood Joe.
To be a Brentwood Joe.
Make a wish that they were not.